concrete walls. There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Livestream. We're starting off this week with a little bit of footage, flying shark bite, a little bit of freestyle footage. As always, like I say, when I show shark bite footage or any FPV footage, especially on a live stream. Here we go. Why did I do that? Why did I think this? Hang on. Hold on. I'll finish that thought in a second. Why did I do that? Here I am. I'm flying. I'm doing fine. I'm doing my tricks. Watch carefully now. I do the trick again. I'm trying to find my line. Okay, at this point, I don't know where my line is. A lot of times when I do a power loop, the power loop is kind of blind, and I'm just like, I'm not aiming for anything in particular. I have a general sense of where I'm going to end up, right? But so I'm like, okay, here I come. Here come the trees. Okay, so I'm gonna follow this line down the trees. Yeah, good. Okay, now where am I going to go? Okay, I'm turning left. Am I going to go under the trees? What am I going to do? Okay. Oh, I caught myself. Almost hit the ground there. Don't quite know where I'm going. Don't know why I did that. I think I was trying to do another kind of power loop backflip because I came out of there and trees were right in front of me. And now, okay, this is fine. I could get out of this. And then I just throttled straight into the ground. Bonk. And done. Yeah, don't know. As I always say when I'm showing FPV footage, especially of like a video system that people may be trying to evaluate the video quality, you're seeing it through a crappy YouTube live stream. So the video quality is definitely not as good as it would be. Let's keep watching. I got to do another 3 packs a day experiment to keep my freestyle improving. I got to say, there definitely are just things I like doing and do them. I like this style of flying, And I can't decide how much of the fact that I like this style of flying is that it's what I know how to do, and how much is that it's just what I like. You see what I'm getting at? Like, if I worked harder at learning more tricks... Oh, 2.7 volts. Okay, we're done. Oof. Like, if I worked harder at learning more tricks, would I then like doing them? Or is that just what I like? I don't know. 507RC, I agree with you. Shark for what it's worth, HD0 agrees with us. SharkBite needs more output power. These 200 milliwatt video transmitters are showing the potential of the system, but with 800 milliwatts or a watt, it would be doing a lot better. It's fine for racing. It's good for racing. Yeah. And they're working on it. So. Oh, man. Welcome back. I'm back. I'm alive. Went to Burning Man. Went to the playa. Here, hang on. Let me see if I can find some. Well, it wasn't Burning Man, because Burning Man was canceled this year. But it turns out that you can just go to the playa. It's just a federal national park or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. You can just go to the playa and, and the 15, 20,000 people did. Let me see if I can find any good pictures to share with you guys. Let's see. Oh, here we go. This is a good one. So that's, oh, I'm going to turn that camera off. I was gaming last night, so I have my little camera. Let me turn that off. That's our camp right there. That's my wife's camper, which you guys see me fly around all the time, and a little bell tent she has. She actually drove out. She's been doing a cross-country road trip with our kids for the last, 3 weeks. So she drove out. I flew out. There we go. Let me see. Hang on a second. Let me see if there's any other good pictures. Let's see. There's there's me and my son. He's having a great time. Trust me. I assure you. Anyway, so I'm back. I'm alive. I made it. It was fun. It was great. Highly recommended for everyone. Jeremy Sarge wants to know if it got labeled as a super spreader event. I don't know about that, Jeremy. I mean, obviously that was something I took into consideration when I decided whether we were going to go. But I mean, ultimately, camping on the open playa outside with the desert winds blowing around, I felt better about that than I would about, let's say, going to a convention where you're all indoors. Maintaining distancing was pretty easy, and obviously not everybody who went maintained distancing. Some people went to the dance camps or the bars and clustered up, and obviously that's their decision. But I felt okay about my decision. Obviously, everybody who makes a decision feels okay about it. But Alexander FPV, no, that's my older son. My younger son is the one in the baby intro. He is obviously not a baby anymore. That was years ago. Here, hang on. This is the kid from the baby intro right now, or the baby outro. Yeah, so he's gotten older, as they do. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back with you. I hope you're glad to be back with me. We are going to Drone Racer, not much hand washing. Yeah, I mean, you can, it's the playa, it's the desert, there's dust, you're going to get dusty. There is no point in, I mean, if you go to Burning Man and you stay for a week, if you have the ability to take, a really good shower or bathe in some way, and, for one glorious moment, your body is clean and dust-free, and then it's over. You just instantly, you're dusty again. So, yeah. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Here's what we got going on. I am monitoring your chats right here. I'm monitoring your chats. Me and the NSA. I'll be taking your questions here in the chats. I'll be taking your questions here in the chats, like new Foxeer video. Why are Foxeer hinting at a new HD camera? I mean, Foxeer makes SharkBite cameras. Maybe that's what they mean. Don't know. Do you have to have a ham radio license for FPV? Yes, you do. Legally. I mean, many people don't, but you're legally required to do that because the FPV video transmitters are not Part 15 certified. The exception is DJI is Part 15 certified. I think it's only on like 4 of the 8 channels. Nathaniel wants to know, how do you like the Scamp trailer? I'm considering the 19-foot version. Hold on a second, Nathaniel. I'll answer that question as soon as I acknowledge the other half of my screen, these beautiful people in my Discord server, my patrons. Hello, patrons. Thank you so much for your support. What's the all-up weight on that quad? The 533 switchback. I was like, I haven't put it on a scale. My 533 switchback is about 400, maybe 410 grams, depending on the battery I'm using. I would guess that one's a little heavier because it's stretched to fit the SharkBite. So I would be confident it's under 450. So I'll be taking your questions. Did I fly Slat Spot T-Bird FPV? No. So I did not end up hooking up with Slat. I had hoped to fly through Vegas on the way home and hook up with Slat, but here's the problem. I left Reno it was on Wednesday, and Slat has a new job. He just started a new job. I hope that's okay to share, Slat. Not trying to share your personal information. And he was like, I cannot take a weekday off to fly with you. And he said, anyway, the spots would only be empty on the weekend anyway. And so basically, in order to fly with Slat, I would have had to take basically a whole week to stay till the weekend in Vegas, which would have been cool, but and then fly the weekend and then fly back on like Monday or Tuesday. It would have been a whole nother week, a whole nother set of live streams. And I was just like, I don't think I'm going to do it. So Bastian Sonderman, I'll get your question too. 1 second. Oh, one more thing I forgot to say. And if you want to be sure I get to your question, hit the $, leave a super chat. It'll call your question out to the side here and throw a couple bucks at me, which is certainly appreciated. How do I like the Scamp? So we have I think it's a Scamp 16. This is my wife's. She loves campers. She bought this a couple years ago and absolutely loves it. The cool thing about a Scamp is that it's a fiberglass shell, so it is easier to work on in some ways than an aluminum shell. And what I like about it is it is a one-piece construction, so you have a lot less potential for leaking. Obviously, anytime you have holes in the ceiling, there's potential for leaks, right? So like there where the air conditioner is. I mean, you could get leaks. But normally with a traditional camper, the whole roof it's like a roof. And there's all kinds of potential for leaks at the seams. And I love the fact that this thing is relatively easy to maintain. It's super lightweight. We originally towed it with our minivan, which somehow I think it's a Kia Sorento minivan, has a freaking 3,500 pound tow capacity. I don't know how that happens, but so you could tow it with like a big SUV or a minivan, or if you have a truck, it's no problem. Now you're talking about getting the Scamp 19. And the thing about the Scamp 19, we were just talking about this yesterday, my wife and I. It's a fifth wheel, and it's like, obviously I'm sure it's a good camper, but it just doesn't feel like a Scamp to me, because it just looks like you can see the Scamp 16 under here, that they just kind of like glued a freaking fifth wheel on the front of. And it's just, I mean, if you get it, you're probably going to love it. But my first reaction was, that just looks weird. That just looks weird. So I don't know if I would get a Scamp 19. Obviously, it has all the advantages of a Scamp, and it's a bigger, but I didn't get a 19. We didn't anyway. So yeah, there you go. Talk about campers for a minute. Bastian Sonderman says, do you know anything about DJI working on canvas mode? Here's what we know about that. That rumor comes from a statement by Cadex. Cadex said, let's rewind the clock. Cadex was really mad at RunCam for releasing the RunCam MIPI camera, which was not authorized by DJI. It was a DJI-compatible camera that was not authorized. And Caddx said, we're going to have to do something to lock out these third-party cameras. And there was a big uproar in the FPV community, obviously. And then DJI said, no, that's not going to happen. And DJI said, in fact, we're going to make RunCam an official dealer as well. So now there are going to be authorized, now it's Caddx and RunCam. Now that was a statement from DJI, so presumably that's like, you can take that to the bank. Caddx then said, yes, oh no, yes, of course. We're not going to do that. No. In fact, Caddx's statement kind of implied, they were like, some people have been misinterpreting our, this is not a direct quote. They kind of implied that people who had said that they were going to lock out RunCam and third-party cameras were like misinterpreting or, jumping the gun. And it's like, no, you said that. And Caddx was like, no, we're not going to do that. No, it's all good. Please don't be bad. In fact, hey, do you guys know we're working on canvas mode? They like released a statement. It felt to me like a big backpedal. And it almost felt like they dropped canvas mode into that statement as a way of sort of covering up the bad thing that had just happened and sort of resetting the news cycle. There's a thing you do where if there's something bad for you in the news cycle, you get some other piece of news out to supplant it. And that's what the canvas mode announcement felt like to me. It didn't feel, so it's great. So first of all, it's great that they said they were working on it because it means that somewhere someone knows that we want that. How could they not know? We've been telling them forever. I know. And yet, but there's no actual date or indication. And Madstech in the chat says, I don't think it'll happen. It smelt off. Yeah, like they said, oh, we're working on canvas mode. And it's like, it just felt like, I mean, it would be great. I want it to happen. Caddx, make it happen. But there was no date. There was no, the combination of, oh, we effed up and everyone's mad at us. And now we're backpedaling. And then right that moment, they're like, and we're working on canvas mode. So wouldn't you rather be happy about that than mad at us about this RunCam locking out third-party thing? That's what it felt like to me. I want it to happen. Mike Bergman says, please say it won't happen. Then it will happen. Madstech says, they have spoken to a dev on it, and he provided a load of info, but I'm still not convinced. I want it to happen. Bubby said, Bubby, good to see you, Bubby. What's canvas mode, Bubby asks. So canvas mode is a way that the flight controller can send OSD information to the goggles. The way that it works right now is the DJI goggle reads data from the flight controller, like battery voltage. And the DJI goggle draws that information on screen, okay? But the problem with that is that the DJI goggle only asks for certain information, and that's why, for example, you can't get the warning OSD element, right? And more fundamentally, you don't have a full working OSD. Like SharkBite supports canvas mode, and in SharkBite, with canvas mode, you have the full Betaflight OSD, including all the menus. Just like if you were using an analog camera, the flight controller can say, it can draw the menu using the digital data link. So DJI doesn't support canvas mode. And it would be great that if it did, because once DJI supports canvas mode, then you'll have the full Betaflight OSD. So it would be great if they did that. Madstick says, I can say that they spoke with Alex, who added canvas mode to ArduPilot. I put them both in touch, and he spoke with them and sent a load of info over, but it all seemed off still, as that would need to be DJI. That's an interesting question, Madstick. People have asked whether Caddx... There's a lot of questions about the degree of Caddx's involvement in the manufacturing and production of the DJI Air Unit and the Caddx Vista, or the Caddx Air Unit and the Caddx Vista. My personal opinion, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again in case anybody's missed it. My personal opinion is that Caddx does not manufacture the Caddx Vista, the video transmitters. I do believe that Caddx manufactures the cameras. We know Caddx can make cameras, and these cameras seem very consistent with other cameras Caddx has made. But if you take apart a Caddx Air Unit or Caddx Vista, the manufacturing quality and design, it's just like, I don't want to, like, you got a Honda Civic over here, and you got a freaking Rolls-Royce Phantom over here. And they're both good cars in their own way, right? But you look at one, and there's just a degree of quality and manufacturing on one that isn't on the other. And, so I don't think Caddx makes those. Then the big question was, does Caddx work on the firmware? And Caddx has said, oh, yeah, no, we're working on the firmware. I don't know about that. That feels like the kind of thing that DJI would keep in-house. That's just my gut check there. Like, would DJI hand the source code to all of their stuff, to the FPV goggles? Would they just hand that over to Caddx and be like, okay, guys, have fun? Doesn't feel like a DJI thing to do. But that's me. Does Caddx really have software devs? I mean, cameras involve some software. I don't know. So my take is that Caddx, I would put really good odds that Caddx doesn't manufacture the Air Unit and the Vista, that they're just repackaging them. Why would they do that? Because they don't have FCC Part 15 approval. That's It's Blunty and other people have looked to, and the DJI, the FCC databases are public information, and no one can find a Part 15 certification for the Vista. So my theory is that DJI wanted to release the Vista. They didn't want to go through all the rigmarole that would be involved because the FCC watches DJI closely, right? They're a big player, and they're not allowed. They have to toe the line. But when Caddx releases a product, nobody cares. And so my theory is DJI wanted to release the Vista. They didn't want to go through the Part 15 rigmarole, and so they gave it to Caddx to release so that they could slide it under the radar. That's my hot take. Regardless though, the key thing here is communication, because I do think that Caddx has DJI's ear. And if Caddx is saying to DJI, please give us canvas mode, whether Caddx's coders or DJI's coders are actually the ones doing the development. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. If DJI also authorizes RunCam to produce this hardware, that would further support the idea that Caddx is not doing the firmware development. Because you can't have a Caddx and a RunCam separate firmware for the same hardware. That really supports the idea to me that DJI is keeping this stuff in-house. Anyway. So. Gigawatts asks about my website. I'm adding more sections to my website. Hang on. Sorry, I can't have my phone buzzing at me all live stream. Let me turn my phone off real quick. Or at least mute it. So unprofessional. I just added this section on 4-inch freestyle quads, sparked by my love of the shocker. Currently we've got 5-inch freestyle, 5-inch racing, 4-inch freestyle, and now we're working on the sub 250 freestyle section. Is there going to be a section on tiny whoops? I mean, yes. Toothpicks, tiny whoops, these are all in the queue. They just take a lot of time because obviously I want to make sure that I can stand behind the recommendations, and I have to write copy for each of the parts to talk about why it's good. So yes, but it all takes time. T4, who said that? Oh, T4 in FPV in the Discord is showing a Caddx quote saying that DJI works on the firmware. I mean, I thought Cadix had implied otherwise, but I'm not surprised. Okay. Let's get a couple more super chats out of the way. Wait, there was another question I wanted to get. Hang on. I'm not gonna find it though. Okay. Can you fly a Crossfire receiver with a tracer transmitter, Kilokal 84? No, you cannot. Okay. Can you map UARTS, or do the pins have to be physically a UART, says Jeremy Sarge. Jeremy Sarge, there are restrictions on UARTs. A flight controller, the processor, or MCU is another word, the way to call it. The MCU, that's the F7, F4 processor. It does have resources locked to certain pins. There are GPIO pins, general purpose IO, which can be a motor output, a PWM output, etc. But there are other resources that are locked to certain pins, like timers, DMA channels, and I think UARTs as well. There are some cases where you can remap a UART, like you can remap a UART to be something else. But I don't think you can like remap UART2TX to be UART2RX, or remap UART2TX to be UART3TX. I'm not 100% confident on that though, because I swear I've heard a situation where someone did something like that. I would say if you're trying to remap a UART, you can try it, but it may not work. Okay, let's get some super chats out of the way. Ho Operator, thank you for a $2 super chat. What's a good recommended 4-in-1 ESC for the JBF7? Ho Operator, the JBF7 will work with any iFlight ESC. The plug and pinout will be compatible. So any iFlight 4-in-1 that you care to use, we pair it with a 50 amp 4-in-1, but if it's out of stock, you can look for a different one, or you can use it with any 4-in-1 you want, but you're going to have to rearrange the pins in the plug. So Sam, thank you for £3. Ghost Branch FPV, thank you so much for €5. Good to see you again. Ghost, I played some SnowRunner on a live stream last night. Just a late night live stream. We'll have a little fun. Maybe we'll do some co-op SnowRunner sometime soon. T3PX, thanks for a $5 super chat. Do you fly your own yard in liftoff? Yeah, sometimes I do, but mostly I fly my own yard in real life. Miguel T, thank you for a $15 super chat. Thank you for that big super chat, Miguel T. I fly micro 3-inch max size. He flies from micro up to 3 inches max. Small house, no yard. Good terms with the neighbors. She loves quads, claims they made them leave. Oh, she loves birds and claims they made them leave. Is this true? It is not out of the question that quads flying around would cause birds to leave. Now, I am not an expert on bird behavior patterns, but I have experienced birds like flying around. Like you'll take off your quad and like birds will leave the trees. So it's plausible that a weird object flying around would spook birds and cause them to leave. I don't know if it's true or not. How do I keep a middle ground between us? I want to avoid any escalation. I mean, Miguel, that's I can't answer that question for you. That's you managing your relationship with your neighbor. Like you have to decide how you're going to handle that, whether you're going to, sometimes you could say, well, it's my yard. I'm flying in my yard. That's, sorry, suck it up. Or you could say, well, maybe I'm going to keep the peace. Or maybe there's some middle ground, like you put out a bird feeder to try to attract the birds to come back. I don't know. It's not the craziest thing I've ever heard that flying quads around would cause birds to leave. However, I mean, I fly around my house all the time. We have plenty of birds. I mean, so. Who knows? Borked, thank you for a $5 super chat. I need a step in between flying whoops inside and an open prop 5-inch outside. Want to stay with prop guards and a hybrid cam to record HD without GoPro. I mean, I feel like a 3 or 3.5 inch is what you're talking about there. You want to stay with prop guards, though. The thing is, once you get outside, prop guards are going to make the quad fly so much. Regardless, prop guards make the quad fly worse. And once you get outside, you kind of don't need them. So are you talking about flying inside with prop guards? I suppose there's maybe a 95 millimeter, a 2.5. Yeah, Overid says a Cinewhoop 2.5 is a good step up from a tiny whoop. You're not going to find any 2.5-inch Cinewhoop with a hybrid cam on board, though. So you're going to definitely DIY. Bannister Post says, what about if he's near soft targets? Fair enough. I mean, if you're actually doing Cinewhoop stuff with actors or people, then yeah, prop guards make sense there. I think you're describing something like a Cinewhoop. Most Cinewhoops are designed to carry GoPros, but they fly fine without them. And if you build your own Cinewhoop, then you could put a hybrid cam on it. Yeah. So I'd be looking at something like a 3-inch Cinewhoop or a 2.5-inch Cinewhoop. Yeah, like Diving Falcon says, my 2.5-inch Cinewhoop 95X doesn't acro well. Yeah, the 95 millimeter Cinewhoops I've seen, they are okay at Cinewhoop smooth flying, but they are not fun to fly. They kind of fly like shit. So I would be going, if you want a smaller quad that can carry a hybrid cam, I'd be looking at a 3-inch quad with the Brother Hobby 1505 motors. I'd build a 3-inch quad with a BQE Ripsqueak V2 frame. I know this because I've been working on the sub 250 category on my webpage, so I've got all these parts in my mind right now. Consider the BQE Ripsqueak V2 frame, Brother Hobby 1504.5 motors, 3-inch props, and then just get some aftermarket prop guards if you want prop guards. There's companies like Stan FPV prints prop guards, or ducts, whatever you want to call them. Where can we get? I don't want frames. I don't want motors. How about all products? Can I get 3-inch ducts? Four-inch carbon version universal. Here you go. So get some 3-inch injected ducted propeller guards. Fits most 3-inch FPV frames. Get something like this. I can't guarantee that this exact prop guard will work. I'm just giving you an idea. And just put those on there. That's what I would build. Anthony DeStefano, thank you for a $5 super chat. What's the process for multiple DJI pilots to fly together? We picked our own racing channel, but still bumping other pilots off. You need to be at least 10 or 15 feet away from each other. More is better. If two DJI pilots are too close together, even if they're on different channels, they will interfere. I mean, if one's on channel 1 and one's on channel 8, then that's a little better. But you need to separate the DJI pilots. They need to be away from the analog pilots if any analog pilots are flying. And then they need to be on different channels. The ideal situation is that they're in 25 megabit per second mode, not 50. Technically, you can fly 350 megabit per second pilots at a time, but realistically, it's better if they're in 25 and reduce their output power as much as possible. Okay? That's what I would do. And nobody needs to be on channel 8, which is the public channel. Obviously, you need to get off channel 8 or you'll get bumped by somebody else coming up on the public channel. Yeah, I'm sorry, CJ691. I said channel 8. I meant the highest channel. On DJI, the highest channel I think is actually 6. I think it goes 876, but I'm not 100% sure. My point, if they're far apart, though, that's my point. Then they'll have less interference. Yeah. DJI, you absolutely can get 8 pilots in the air at a time. Rotor Riot did it on a video. You just have to keep the pilots spaced out. And potentially you have to power up, like, you have to power up one at a time instead of all plugging in at once. If they all plug in at once, you can get into issues. But if one guy powers up and he goes to channel 1, the next guy powers up and he goes to channel 2, that's a better way to handle it. Mitoda, thank you for a $10 super chat. We got a ton of super chats coming in. Thank you guys so much for your generosity. I'm going to try to get through them and then get back to answering the other folks. Are there incompatible combinations of frames and motors? I have 2 builds, 3 and 4 inch, even with filters to minimum, keeps flying away. Everything's well secured, nothing loose, nothing touching flight controller. The only incompatibility between frames and motors, in my opinion, would be that if like they didn't have the right mounting holes. But no, any motor, if a motor is such bad vibration characteristics that it just flies away, the motor's defective or the frame is defective. It's not like some frames can only be used with some motors. No. Even with filters to minimum, I assume you mean you moved them all the way to the left, so you have the most filtering. If it keeps flying away, man, I mean, it's something of, if it flies away, are you? What if your motor direction is wrong? What if you have enabled motors are reversed, but you didn't reverse the motors? That's a really common mistake, and it does cause an instant flyaway. So maybe it's not your filtering, maybe it's your motor direction. Excess filtering typically won't cause a flyaway. Aerobrat in the Discord says, what if you have too much filtering? I assumed that they flew away on default filters and then he tried to minimize them. I'm just guessing there. But excess filtering I don't think will typically cause flyaway, although I mean, I'm not ruling it out. So this motor direction is reversed slider, which changes from props in to props out. It doesn't actually change the motor direction. It tells Betaflight that you are going to change the motor direction. This changes in Betaflight 4.3, by the way. But in 4.2 and earlier, if you set this, but you don't actually change the motor direction, the quad will fly away. So that's a potential explanation there. Maybe that's it. Ho Operator, I answered your, you got your super chat, $2. What ESC do you recommend for the JBF7? Ho Operator, I answered your first super chat. I hope you heard my answer. PID Toolbox says excess filtering will cause a flyaway if the filter delay gets too high. Willie wants to know, is my video about GPS settings still okay in relation to Betaflight 4.2? Wasn't? Yes. The short version is yes. Fog Doctor wants to know, when is Betaflight 4.3 out? Nobody knows. It's their work when it's ready. Whenever Mike Keller says so. Nobody knows, though. In fact, UAV Tech did a video recently where he teased the title, when is Betaflight 4.3 coming out? He did a whole big roundup of all the new features in Betaflight 4.3, and then he was like, and now the big question, when is it coming out? No one knows. I was like, well, it's a good thing. It's a good thing all the other information in this video was so useful, or I'd be mad. That you teased me. Just clickbait. What action cam do you recommend? Asks Gigawatts GoPro. Obviously. Coelho FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. Great presentation on the TBS-69. Thank you. Kmart FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. Any insight on the HD0 SharkBite camera release? I heard there was a hardware issue. Yeah, they had a batch of about 100 made. There was QC issues with them, and they decided not to release them. So no information about what went wrong or when new stuff is coming, but they're working on it. It's a pretty good camera, I'll tell you that. Borked, thank you for a $5 super chat. My observer is scared. A 70-year-old mom. Recommendation for hybrid cam? I think Ciotti recommends the RunCam hybrid. He uses it on his 3-inch builds. Based on that recommendation, I also, I guess, would recommend it. But Justin Rice, thanks for a $10 super chat. DJI goggles having less range than DJI controller. That's weird. The DJI controller usually has much better range than the DJI controller, the RSSI readout in the lower left will go down to 2 bars, but like I've never fail safes. I this is a bold statement. I will say I don't think I've ever heard of someone fail safing the controller before the video fail saved. So when you say DJI goggles have less range, oh no, I apologize. I misread it. It's backwards. Yes. DJI goggles have less range than controller. Yes, that's what I would expect. No, that's normal. That's normal, Justin Rice. The goggles typically have less range than the controller because the goggles are a 50 megabit per second video link and the controller is a, I don't know, like 1 megabit per second or maybe less. The controller is just it's carrying a lot less data, so the link has more range. That's normal. I mean, something will always have more range than something else. So, but the thing is, the goggles can get out to 13 kilometers, at which point they just shut off, as Wesley Vardy's range testing showed. So, Slappy1FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. Anthony DiStefano, thanks for a $5 super chat. One more question. I got the Firefly and I love it, but the props shatter. Are there different types of material for 40 millimeter props? Yeah, different props can be made out of different sort of polymer combinations and can be more brittle or whatever. So yeah, if the props you're getting are just shattering, buy different props, definitely. And the other thing I would say is black props tend to be more brittle in my experience than colored props. I don't know why. Trek and FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. Have you switched over your quads to JESC or similar firmware? If not, why not? Trekken, almost all of my personal builds run BLHeli 32, not BLHeli S, so I'm not using JSC because JESC is a BLHeli S thing. As far as like micros and stuff, I definitely would want to use RPM filtering and JESC or BlueJ on I would at least give it a try to see if it makes the quad fly better. GemFan Hobby says PC is the industry standard, but there may be other materials. GemFan, I gotta say, I mean, despite, I mean, if you say that all props are made from like PC polycarbonate, then I mean I believe you. It sure seems like maybe it's just the design of the prop, but it sure seems like some props are like more brittle than others. Like the prop will bend and shatter versus bend and crease versus bend and bend back. Maybe it's and it sure seems like the colored props are different than the black props. Anyway. Justin Rice, thank you for another $2 super chat. Was there another question in there? Oh, on my Banggood 5, can I raise the rear arms and invert them for better performance? I mean, we're going to raise the rear arms. Why would you invert them, though? I mean, the advantage of raising the rear arms of a quad is it moves the rear motors further away from the prop wash of the front motors. But if you then invert the arms, you're putting the rear motors back down where they were. So if you want to raise the rear arms, why would you invert them? You can do that. The only thing you have to do is when you flip the motors upside down, the props obviously have to flip over and the motor has to be reversed so it's still moving the same direction. Yeah, Remy Tim asks, can't you have different mixtures to create polycarbonate? Not all props are equal. Oh, very interesting. GemFan Hobby agrees that the design and coloring material may change the durability. GemFan Hobby says, I have a video that'll be released tomorrow with the CEO of GemFan where he will explain and answer questions about props. First episode of Prop Talk is durability. GemFan, I hope you will forward a link to that to news@fpvknowitall.com so we can cover that on the news. That sounds very, I would personally like to see that. Trek and FPV, got you. Dacio Souza, thank you for 10 Brazilian reais. I'm planning my I think it's Brazilian reais. I'm planning my first FPV and trying to set up a future-proof budget. Can you evaluate this set? Success D stack plus Apex 5-inch frame. It's a good frame. TX805. Let's look these parts up. The Success D stack. So I assume you mean the F7 Twin G. That's a good, yeah, that's a good flight controller. Relatively future-proof. The main disadvantage of this flight controller is I think that the dual gyro setup has a higher than usual incidence of failed gyros. And I say this as someone, my JBF7 flight controller is made by iFlight and has dual gyros. So I speak from personal experience. I have been trying to talk to iFlight on about what we can do about that. If you get a good one that isn't like bad out of the factory, then it'll probably be fine. That'll be my only hesitation about that flight controller. A TX805. I think that's your video transmitter. What video? Eachine TX805. That it's probably fine. Eachine makes solid video transmitters. Goes up to 800 milliwatts. And supports smart audio. That's probably fine. It probably wouldn't be my first pick, but it's probably fine. MMCX connector. Yeah. I don't hate that. Cadex camera, Zing 2207, 1750, Tri-Blade 5030, 1400 milliamp hour 6S. I would personally steer away from a 1400 milliamp hour 6S. In my opinion, the biggest 6S I want on a 5-inch is about 1250. The 1400 is going to be a lot heavier. And make the quad fly worse, but other people fly larger 6S and are okay with it. So just my personal opinion, I would get a smaller battery, but it's not like an absolute deal breaker. And Daltz, thank you for a $5 super chat. Thanks for all the love. Team Newbie Drone wants to know the answer to life. Just double checking our math. It's 42. Everybody knows that. Thank you so much for the donation, Dalton. Let's see here. All right, let's get some more questions. What do you think about the Beast H7 for 5-inch? Asks Tomaquad FPV. So the Beast H7, doesn't it have an issue with bidirectional D-Shot? It only works on Betaflight 4.3. Which isn't released yet, so you have to run a nightly build. I think that's true, and I would pick the Beast F7 over the Beast H7 based on that. However, I don't believe that an all-in-one flight controller and ESC like this, I wouldn't trust it on like a 5-inch racing or 5-inch freestyle build. Yeah, Cyclimbo says, holy crap, that got more expensive. Yeah, everything is getting more expensive. Electronics are all getting more expensive. Get used to it. This is twice the price. This is twice the price. And I promise, it used to be about 80 or 90 bucks. Now it's 145 bucks. I guarantee you that's because the component cost has gone up. The component cost of the, look at the JBF7. Ready? Boom, $80. Used to be $45, now it's $80. I promise you that is 100% because of an increase in the component cost. Like, I'm not going to break down numbers, because Tyler would probably not appreciate that. But basically, iFlight came to us and said, hey, it's going to cost us more to make this flight controller. And Tyler was like, okay, well, do we stop making it, or do we like double the price? And I was like, no, please don't stop making it. So, yeah, prices going up. Get used to it. I just, at 100, ask yourself, especially on a 5-inch, where do you need to save weight on a 5-inch freestyle quad? Do you really need to save that much weight? You're going to spend $145 on this. And if you blow one FET, boom, $145 out the window. Right? So, yeah, I don't buy it. I'm going to get a big 50 amp ESC with, look at the size of these FETs. Now, iFlight says this can handle 5-inch racing and freestyle. They say that. But they're not going to be the ones who are out $145 if I blow a FET. So I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Because people blow FETs on full-size 30mm ESCs. Over it says 55 amp. It's not going to break. Oh, yeah. Do you really think that a flight controller with these small FETs that's rated at 55 amps will have the same durability as, an ESC, as an ESC with bigger FETs? Obviously, the bigger FETs are going to do better. They're going to have more heat tolerance. They're going to have more capacitance on board, etc. I just don't believe it. So I would say, like, Tommy runs the iFlight Beast F7 on the 250. Yeah, on a little 250 gram 5-inch with 2004 motors, the voltage spikes, the amp rating, I feel like that's totally doable. But especially because on a 5-inch, you don't need to save space and weight that much, I would get a separate 30mm, no question. Let's see. Schalt Kruger wants me to do a review of the Beta FPV Cetus. I don't think I'm likely to do that. I did get to fly. I'll tell you why. I did get to fly the Cetus at Rotor Riot Rampage, and I was relatively impressed with what they've done. It holds altitude kind of like a DJI, and it's an okay way for a beginner to learn. But here's the problem. I have such mixed feelings about Beta FPV products these days. For example, Beta FPV Light Radio is the one that really got me thinking. Beta FPV Light Radio. It was $40 radio, still is, but it was. And I reviewed it. They sent it out to reviewers. I reviewed it. I had good results with it. I gave it a generally positive review, especially at a price of $40. And then the quality on it was garbage. Like you expect in the FPV hobby that some products are going to be crappy, but other products are going to be good, and hopefully you come out ahead in the end. But I heard from a person who bought like 30 light radios for their classroom, and they said they had I swear to you, they said they had a 100% failure rate. All of them failed in a short period of time. I was like, okay. And you'll notice the light radio, it's not on my website anymore. I was like, okay, that's like, if I only ever recommended products that had like a great failure rate, well, look at FPV Cycle. Bob Ruge. He has been working on his 1S toothpick flight controller for so long now. And the reason he hasn't released it, I think maybe he's just about to release it, or maybe he just did. The reason it's taken him so long is that he has insisted on getting a high level of quality. Meanwhile, it's 9 months later, or however long it's been, and he doesn't have a product that anyone can buy. So if you insist on a high level of quality, you just won't get anything. You'll be waiting instead of flying. So I feel like some compromises have to be made in this hobby, and I accept that. But that light radio, like, it killed me to hear that this person bought 30 of 20, 30, however many they bought for their classroom. And every single one of them failed. And the other thing is that I get emails from people and they say, hey, I had a customer service problem. And I always try and go back to the company and I'm like, hey, just letting you know that this happened in case something slipped through the cracks. But I've heard some, basically, my Beta FPV quad died and I got the runaround from them. So I'm such mixed feelings about Beta FPV right now. Because they make good products. Like the Beta FPV Express LRS stuff. So cool that they're making that. I have right here, literally right here, I have a Beta FPV HX115 long-range ELRS. I'm working on a review of it. But every time I talk about a Beta FPV product, I think to myself, is this going to have an unacceptably high failure rate that people who buy it will be pissed off about? And then, see, here's the thing. If a product is bad and fails, hey, my JBF4 that had that problem where the 9-volt regulators were just dying. We had a bad run. The 9-volt regulators were just dying, and Race Day Quads gave out so many replacements. Now that's still not okay. It's still not okay if you crash your quad and break your GoPro or break a motor or break your frame because the flight controller died. You get a free flight controller, but that doesn't really make you whole. What can you do? But the least you can do if you're going to sell a product that's crappy is take care of your customers and say, like, sorry, here's your money back, or here's a replacement product. And it doesn't feel like Beta FPV does that as aggressively as if I think they should. That's just my gut feeling based on, yeah. So that's why I'm not excited to review the Beta FPV Cetus or the Cetus Pro that they've got now. I think it's an interesting product, but if I review it, like, does it come with a light radio? If I review it, especially for someone who it's their first time in the hobby, and I say this is a good product to buy and you should get it, and then it turns out that it's just failing left and right, I'm not going to feel great about that. So, is the Nazgul Evoke F5 a good choice to buy? Asks Reclaim FPV. I have the Nazgul Evoke for review. I haven't flown it yet. I haven't actually opened the box yet. But on paper, I think the Diatone Roma V2 is a little cheaper and equal or better in terms of the components. So on paper, I think the Diatone Roma V2 is edging the Evoke out. With that being said, if you're looking at the Evoke and you like it, it's just a little more expensive than the Roma V2. It has cool LED lighting and stuff. If you're leaning towards the Evoke, I think it's a safe choice. Yeah. Yeah. Gamma Gonad said, great username, by the way, Gamma Gonad. Gamma Gonad says the HX115 LR needs wider stator motors. I totally agree. I haven't gotten to fly this outdoors yet, but I did a hover test indoors, and I could immediately tell from the motor's responsiveness to throttle moves that this thing needs bigger motors. We're going to review it as it stands, but I think it would be way better with like a 1202 or a something like a 1202 or 1203 motor. But it is what it is. I'm most interested in the Express LRS built in. That's super. I'm so excited. Because here's the thing. Any given quad is only as good as its weakest link. So think about Tiny Whoops. Tiny Whoops have crappy low-range D8 free sky receivers where you fail safe if you go, if you fail safe in 50 feet or whatever, and they have crappy 25 milliwatt video transmitters. Okay, now that you can build Express LRS into a flight controller like this, now Tiny Whoops, the video link is the weak spot. That's great, because the Express LRS is going to just have range for days. So I am really excited to see. I hope that Express LRS becomes, I hope that we just stop seeing FreeSky crappy D8 receivers built into Tiny Whoops, and it's just all Express LRS from now on. Because it's so much better. Of course, people will have to get Express LRS modules instead of FreeSky modules, of course, but there you go. Yeah. Remco Teamer, thank you for €5. I can't connect the Happy Model Express LRS to the Wi-Fi. This Express LRS 0143 is showing on my screen. Well, I don't know what Express LRS 0143. That sounds like an LQ or something. You can't connect the Happy Model Express LRS to the Wi-Fi. So I'm a little confused as what you mean by that. To put the module into Wi-Fi mode, you go into the Lua script and there's the enable Wi-Fi, and it just does it. I have a video. Maybe you haven't seen my video yet, and this will help. I have a video. Let's ping you here. Excuse me. At Remco Teamer, showing how to do it. It should be the same anywhere. Yeah, I got you. I got you, man. Check that video. It shows how to put the module into Wi-Fi mode and flash it, but it should be... You can't do it from a PC without wireless, Dog Tanyan says. Yeah, you need... But I do it with my smartphone because my PC doesn't have a Wi-Fi adapter. I should probably put a Wi-Fi adapter in it. Remco Teamer says, I've seen it. Well, where is it going wrong, Remco? You say can't connect to Wi-Fi, but I'm not sure what that means. Can you tell me more? World Drone Community, thanks for a $3 super chat. Remco Teamer, thanks for another €5 super chat. Thank you so much. What's your take on the GoPro 10? Asks Willie. Willie says, will you replace your GoPro 9? Willie, I have bad news for you, my friend. I don't own a GoPro Hero 9. I am always one generation behind on GoPros. My workhorse right now is the Hero 7. I don't even run Hero 8s on most of my quads because I know I'm going to crash and break it. And yes, the image quality of the 8 is better than the 7, and the image quality of the 9 is better than the 8. Two things change, though. One, they're more expensive, and two, they're heavier. The 9 is way heavier than a 7. The 8 is a little heavier. When the 10 comes out, I may switch to running 8s, but I'll probably just keep running 7s because as long as I can buy a refurbished 7 for $200, I don't know why I would buy a 10 for $400 and crash it and destroy $400. The main thing that drives me is the ability to get insurance on the cameras. So, no, I will not be buying a 10. I will not... Maybe finally 9s will be cheap enough that I'll move to them. But the weight is really bugging me. The additional weight really bugs me. I also don't like the 9. Although on the 8, the lens is replaceable. Camera Butter has a replacement kit for the 8's lens. I actually need to update my website about that. My website says the 8's lens can't be replaced. I should... add a link to the Camera Butter. Okay. Yeah, Jason Lee says get a 5.5-inch quad for a heavier GoPro. That's what Chris Rosser has been promoting. There's some merit to that, but at the end of the day, a heavier quad flies like a heavier quad. There's no... The thing is, go build a 400-gram racing quad and tell me it's not the best 5-inch you've ever flown. You can add prop disc to change the thrust to weight to prop loading. You can change that, but at the end of the day, you're still flying a heavier quad. It still flies like a heavier quad. Big Data Pimp says, why buy refurbished 7 for $200 when Best Buy has brand new 8s for $220? Is that true? I mean, I haven't bought one in a little while. Stop it. Hero 8. Nope. $299. Hero 8 is currently $300. So there you go. Once the Hero 8 is $200 to $250, then I won't buy 7s anymore, although I still will be annoyed about the weight. F7 Drift, thank you for 50 Norwegian kroner. Thanks for helping me get into FPV. Really steep learning curve, but it's been a blast. Everything from building, programming, and flying. Going back to the question from Remco Teamer. Remco, I don't know what this 0143 thing is, but set that aside. Are you trying to flash if you're trying to flash it over Wi-Fi, you need to put it into Wi-Fi mode. Charles Pierus. Yeah, it sounds like he's trying to connect it to his Wi-Fi network. You don't do that. You connect your phone or laptop to the Wi-Fi network created by the module. Samc FPV says, I'm using Edge TX on TX16S when I try to use TBS Agent Lite emergency mode appears. What's going on? Yeah, you can't flash the TX16S using TBS Agent Lite. That's why. TBS Agent Lite only works with the Tango and the Mamba. You have to use OpenTX Companion. Or Edge TX. If you're running Edge TX, I don't think you can use OpenTX Companion either. Yeah, so don't use TBS Agent Lite. Doesn't work. Airshire wants to know, which Express ELRS module do you recommend? Airshire, right now, it feels to me like the Neminmo module is the best combination of build quality and capabilities. The Neminmo module. That's the one I would pick if I was buying today. Bunch of people were asking my take, hot take, on Mr. Steele's video about the Chris Rosser AOS 5. The perfect frame or hype? The first thing I would say about that is that I have a lot of respect for Mr. Steele for even bothering to do this kind of thing. Whenever somebody walks up to me with a product and says, hey, will you take a look at this? First of all, I'm happy to do that. On some level, I tense up a little bit because people take the things that I say very seriously, maybe more seriously than they should. But I know that any criticism is going to be felt very hard. I know that any compliment is, the words will have weight. And also, I know that people don't want to hear, meh, yeah, it looks pretty good. Because they'll feel like I'm blowing them off. So anytime somebody says, hey, take a look at this frame that I've designed, it's like, okay, there are a lot of different ways to F this up. I was once at a race and we were talking about Mustangs, and somebody showed me a picture of his Mustang. It was a Fox body, and I don't know why I said this. I mean, I apologize. He probably doesn't even remember this conversation, but I was like, oh yeah, Fox body. Oh man, that's my least favorite body style of Mustang. They looked like shit in the 80s. Oh my God, Fox bodies, yeah. And later I was like, the guy just showed you a picture of it. He probably loves that car. And the first thing out of your mouth was, oh, I hate that body style. Jeez, what an ugly car you have. I cringe. I cringe to this day thinking about that. I don't know. It's just one of those foot and mouth moments. So somebody hands you their quad and they say, hey, take a look at this. There's a lot of ways for that to go wrong. You got to look at it. You got to think of something to say about it so they know that you didn't just blow them off and be like, yeah, okay, it's cool. Who cares? Go away, loser. It's probably going to be something critical because in my mind, ideally you would find something to compliment, be like, oh, that's cool. That's a really good idea. Maybe it's going to be something critical. So you're giving them a little feedback, right? But if it's too critical, then you look like an asshole. Wow, this motor I can feel this motor clicking. The bearing is Or bushing is, wow, that motor's got some click in it. How about that? So kudos to Mr. Steele. Oh, whoop, sorry. Kudos, nope, still the wrong. There we go. Kudos to Mr. Steele for, like, somebody comes up to him and says, hey, check out my quad. He flies it. He comments on it. He engages with them. And I think this is an aspect of these interactions that is often missed when you watch it on YouTube. Everybody who was there was, like, totally cool with the interaction, as near as I can tell. But then Mr. Steele puts it up on YouTube with a title of The Perfect Frame or Hype. And now, so if this guy had recorded this interaction and put it on his YouTube channel and titled it Mr. Steele Responds to the AOS 5, that's on him, right? And you would say, well, Mr. Steele was just giving you his personal opinion, and maybe it wasn't appropriate to, share it with the world like that. Although, obviously, anytime Mr. Steele is on camera, he knows it's going to get uploaded, so he has to take that into account. But this is clearly a little trolly, right? This is obviously, he didn't say, my take on the AOS 5. He titled it, The Perfect Frame or Hype. So obviously the implication there is that, oh, everybody's saying this is the perfect frame. Well, is it? Or is it just hype? And the implication there is that he's going to say it's hype. Because you don't have a title like that, and then at the end you go, yeah, it's perfect. Especially when you have a sponsored frame. There's no world in which he's going to say, oh, this is the perfect frame. Because his frame is perfect for him, obviously. He helped develop it. So I obviously he's being a little trolly here, and I think that is the source of some of the backlash he's getting. Because he flies the frame. Nope, still the wrong. What's going on, Bardwell? He flies the frame, and there are a lot of critical. First of all, the first thing he says is, yeah, it flies like any other frame I've ever flown, and I totally feel that. The main thing that affects. The main thing that a frame contributes to the flight characteristics of a quad, in my opinion, are number one, weight. A heavier frame will make a heavier quad and will fly like a heavier quad. Number two, the motor geometry. Is it a T? Is it an H? Is it an X? And number three, the surface area. Like a frame with big wide arms like the Skyliner is going to have more drag and is going to decelerate faster than a frame with little narrow arms. Those are the things that, but unless you are tuning a frame to the nth degree, the fact that the JB-QAV-S has a resonance peak at 200 hertz and maybe the Apex or the AOS 5 doesn't, unless you're really pushing the D gains to the absolute maximum, which many people are not doing. And so this guy hands a quad to Steele and he flies it and he says, what do you think of the frame? Like, I don't know. So Steele is right in that respect, that, like, we look at this guy's build, and this guy's build has this GoPro mount, which is zip tied on, and it's a little floppy, and maybe he's got certain motors. I can't see what motors are on there, but the frame is not going to be what determines how this quad flies. And it's probably going to fly fine. And so the first thing Steele does is he starts looking at the frame from the perspective of build and maintenance, which I totally agree with doing. Especially if Steele didn't build the frame, Steele didn't tune it, you're not going to be able to tell anything about how it flies because you don't know what the frame is contributing. Now, a lot of people feel that some of his criticisms were incorrect. Like he pointed out that the USB port for the flight controller has a 90 degree on it. And he inferred that that was always true. He was like, that's annoying. Yeah, I agree. It would be annoying if the frame was designed that way. It's not. It was for that guy's build. I'm not sure why. But he says that the build is complex. I don't know if he's ever built an Apex. The first time I built an Apex, I had to follow, like, you hand me many frames and I'll just slap them together and be like, yeah, I see how this goes together. I had to look up how to build an Apex. The one I built had the captive frame. It had the captive stack screws. I think they've fixed that now. They've changed it, so it's not true. But So on some level, I want to give him a pass because he criticizes the frame just based on a first off the cuff look. Well, he didn't do his research for this little bullshit. Somebody handed me a frame and asked me what I think of it. Yeah, of course he didn't do his research. Somebody just walked up to him at I/O and said, hey, what do you think of this? But then when you go and you post it on your channel with a headline, the perfect frame or hype. Okay, now you just gave some bullshit off the cuff opinions. But since they're bullshit off the cuff opinions, maybe don't post it on your channel and like throw shade. That's all. Anyway, I guess the question is not, in my mind, if I were to weigh in, which obviously I am, I would say the question is not why did he say what he said. Nothing he said or did was in any way questionable as a sort of an off-the-cuff, hey, what do you think of this frame? I've never seen it before, and I'm just going to give you my opinion. But as soon as you post it to your channel with a title like that, now you're throwing shade, and you really need to have your ducks in a row. Jackalope, I disagree. Jackalope says Steele is like the Michael Jordan of FPV. He's one of the best, but such a douche outside of FPV. I disagree. And people who've met him in person, like me, no, I'm just being dumb. People who've met him in person agree. Everyone who's met him in person says he's super nice. He's super approachable. He is super genuine. He engages with people. He comes off a certain way on camera. And I think that causes people to call him douchey. No one who's met him in person says he's like that. No one. I mean, somewhere maybe. I don't know. He's a really laid-back, cool guy. Yeah. Super great guy. Met him at the protest. Yeah. Jackalope says he comes off douchey. I think he does. I think he comes off that way, but when you meet him in person, it just doesn't read like that. I think it's something about the videos. I mean, he definitely speaks his mind. No surprise. Yeah, is the AOS 5 complicated? I mean, you get a bag of hardware for an Apex, and it's got, 18 different kinds of screw. I'm exaggerating, but it's got the countersunk screws with the shoulder washers. It's got the regular cap heads. It's got the button heads. Like, the hardware bag alone for an Apex, yeah. So no one who flies an Apex can say that any other frame is complicated. Anyway, it's probably not the most complicated frame, but it's up there. Anyway, there you go. There you go. Many of his criticisms of the AOS 5 are completely valid. Many of them are completely valid. Yeah. Victor FPV says, somebody had to question it, though. Rosser calls it the best and perfect. It's a pretty bold statement. Yeah, I totally understand why someone might want to sort of take the air out of the AOS 5. I guess part of it is that when you are seen by people as being on top, then any criticism you make of someone else is seen as punching down. And punching down is always a bad look. So Steele might think, I mean, I'm not claiming to have some insight into his mind, but Steele might think, well, this is just another frame out there. And he might see it as lateral criticism. But especially because Steele has a frame with his name on it, and he is going to be perceived as being protective of his product and his brand, even if that's not true. It'll be perceived as punching down. And when Chris Rosser is like, the AOS 5 is the best, that is seen as a small guy trying to struggle to get to the top. And so it gets a pass. Anyway, there you go. That's my take. That's my hot take. Hot take! Hot take on that. Willie wants to know, I'm using the QX7 with Crossfire, and I'm curious if I use external power via USB-C, will I extend my LiPo inside the QX7? Yep. Maybe. I think that what you need, I think that the Crossfire will draw power from whichever battery is higher voltage, if my memory's correct. You should double check this because I'm not 100% sure. So I think what you need to do is use a 3S on the module and a 2S inside the quad. If you use a 2S in the module and a 2S in the quad, it probably still will extend the battery because they'll kind of come down together, but it may not be the same. The Crossfire will draw down the battery in the radio. It'll just draw them down slower. T-Bird FPV says, you think your frame's the best, Steel thinks his is the best, the same as for Chris. No, I disagree, T-Bird. I would never say the QAVS JB Edition is the best frame you can get, because that would imply that there was one best frame for everybody, and that's obviously not true. And I think Steel would probably, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't try to speak for him there. Maybe he would say the Apex is the best. I would say that I like the JB QAVS. It's the one I like. But it's not the best for everybody, because everybody has different priorities. Ryan Day wants to know, do the DJI FPV goggles V2 have an AV input? Yes, they do. Worm FPV, it's very interesting. Worm FPV says Steel's personal brand is I'm a know-it-all douchebag. That's really funny that you say that because, like, people accuse me of being a know-it-all douchebag. In fact, know-it-all is, like, my tagline, right? And it's just a brand. It's not meant to suggest. It's like, I like to say, it's like, you know, the potato chips saying no one can eat just one. Well, obviously you can eat just one. It's not meant to be taken literally. It's just a brand. But people specifically accuse me of being, like, douchey, of being stuck up, of being arrogant. And I get that. Like, you watch one video and you get a first impression. It just is what it is. But you know, Steel, I would say that if you just watch his videos, he comes off as like a hotshot pilot. But as far as a know-it-all, I mean, I think he knows his gear and has opinions about stuff, his strong opinions about stuff. He never came off as like know-it-all to me, just having strong opinions. Anyway. Richard Husber, thank you for 1,000 Hungarian florins in the super chat. The weight limit in Hungary is 120 grams. Suggestions for 3-inch freestyle drone that flies good. Jeez. Siati's in the chat. Siati, I think we have to be talking about 3-inch high def. No way. Richard, I'm sorry, man. I don't see how that's possible. I think a toothpick 3-inch would be your best bet. They can come in around 75 to 100 grams. How light can you get a DJI? How light was my naked DJI? Was it under 120 grams? Maybe you could get a 3-inch DJI under 120 grams all up. Rob Schlitz says, my toothpick 3 with naked Vista weighs 115 grams. There you go. All up or dry? Yeah, so with a lot of work, you can get a naked Vista toothpick under 120 grams. And it'll fly okay. It's really challenging. WOM FPV, did Steel make a follow-on post? No, I didn't see that. Chris Spalding, thanks for a $5 super chat. Can you explain the Vaz product line? They have a million SKUs and loads of them overlap with each other. I mean, that's a pretty vague question, Chris Spalding. Like, are there specific products you want me to compare? I mean, they have a ton of antennas with different gain patterns, different applications. Chris Spalding, if you you don't have to leave another super chat. Just tag me in the chat, please. The Beta FPV HX115 is not high def. He wanted a high def. Tell me 2 VAS products you're confused about, Chris. Oh, this is the follow-up post he made? Yeah, absolutely. He said, has internet is entitled to voice opinion. Yeah, no, absolutely. But also, the people are... It's funny when somebody says something and then gets a backlash. And then they're like, whatever, I'm entitled to my opinion. Yeah, you are. And when you speak your opinion in public, other people are entitled to have a response to it. So that's like, yeah, okay, that doesn't really change anything. Other people are voicing their opinion of your opinion, you know. That doesn't actually win you any points. So that just means I stand behind what I said. F the haters. Waden asks, when I arm my drone, the motor spin for a second, then shut off temporarily. Please help. Waden, it means that you have your flight controller is facing the wrong direction. Your motor is spinning the wrong direction. Your props are on wrong. It's one of those things that causes a runaway to happen. I can't type it all in the chat, but yeah, I can't type it all in the chat. But those are the things that need to change. You know, the other interesting thing about that video, not to go back to it, Steele asked about PID. They talked about the AOS 5 being good for PID tuning, and Steele said, what are you PID tuning for? Are you tuning for smooth video, etc.? Which was an interesting question because, like, everybody knows that we're talking about PID tuning for step response. But that's not the way Steele thinks about it. So that was an interesting little disconnect between Chris Rosser's approach and Steele's approach. Chris Spalding wants to know about the Crosshair versus the Crosshair Extreme versus the Pepperbox. Okay, let's look at them. Okay, let's look at these 3 together. Do they still make the Crosshair? I can't find anything but the Crosshair Extreme. I don't know if they make the Crosshair anymore. Let's just try. Can I do that? That's Crosshair. Okay, I found an old listing for the Crosshair. So let's start with the Crosshair. It's 10 dBIC. The high axial ratio. Crosshair Extreme, it upgraded the element. Longer range and better signal quality. 10 dBIC. 0.99 axial ratio. The axial ratio is the same. It should have the same. It's got about the same beam width. These are basically the same antenna. In terms of their specs and their coverage pattern, these 2 are basically the same. But they say they have patent-pending vector phasing technology and an upgraded element. I don't know. You'd have to cut one apart and see what was different about the element. But in terms of your experience using them, they're basically the same. The axial ratio, the gain, and the beam width are basically the same. So I would say that you probably would just choose the newer one that's supposed to be better. Now the Pepperbox is 2 stacked crosshairs. And what it gives you is a higher gain with a narrow vertical beam width. So here we can see where's the vertical beam? Damn it, it doesn't show it. Let's see if this page has it. No. So maybe the Video Aerial Systems page will have it. Damn it. No, flight beam. It's not giving the vertical beam width. So the difference between a pepper box and a crosshair is that the pepper box has a narrower vertical beam. So it will be more sensitive to you raising or lowering your head, but it has higher gain as a result. And that's the takeaway. Yeah. Yeah, that's the difference between those two. And then the difference between like the crosshair and the pepper box and a patch antenna is a patch antenna is printed onto a PCB, and as a result, the dielectric of the PCB is what is the gap between the grounding element and the conducting element, and that dielectric is not got the right impedance, and as a result, the sensitivity of a patch antenna is lower. The efficiency of a patch antenna is lower. The Crosshair Extreme has an air gapped, it literally has an air gap between the conducting element and the ground element, and as a result, the efficiency of a crosshair or a pepper box is going to be much higher. So what you're going to see is that if you've got a 10 dBi crosshair, if you've got a crosshair and a patch antenna with the same beam pattern, the crosshair is going to be higher gain and give you stronger signal. But it's physically bigger. So there you go. That's how I would evaluate those. Willie wants to know, I've got a Crossfire Micro TX V2. There's only USB-C. I've asked about whether I can use a power bank or a LiPo. Will an external power bank extend my LiPo instead of QS7? That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer, Willie. Well, I do know that the radio powers up when you plug in USB. I do know that. Whether it will use USB preferential to the internal battery, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Alex FPV, thank you for 100 South African Rand. Is there a difference between the air unit that comes with the Caddx Polar and the air unit that came with the Vista? No, they're the same. Can the Caddx Polar camera be upgraded to a different camera? Yes, absolutely. Chris Spalding says, man, it seems like they should clean up their website and explain these application differences more clearly. Yeah, I mean, the information is there if you know about antennas. Haha. But if you don't know about antennas, it's hard to know how to interpret the information. Rip FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. Why do I lose video with DJI? The video link doesn't come back. Luckily, I have GPS rescue, but I don't feel comfortable at any range. Rip, that's a good question. I don't have a great answer for you. I've had video come back after I failsafe, but I don't do a ton of long-range flying, and I seldom failsafe DJI completely. What about Wesley? Wesley Vardy, are you around? When you lost video in your DJI range testing, did it come back by itself? Let's see what he says. Oh, maybe it's right. It's the middle of the night in Australia. That's my bad. He's not around. Yeah, my bad. Guillermo Nespolo, thank you for a $2 super chat. Guillermo wants a 3D printing channel made by me. Nah, there's too many real experts about 3D printing. I'm not qualified to start a channel in 3D printing. I was lucky. I made my FPV channel back when everybody on I came up with the hobby. So when I started making content, no one else was making content that was smarter than me. And I wasn't particularly smart, but I was just figuring it out, and no one else is. I mean, I shouldn't say no one else. People were out there like Project Blue Falcon. You know, I had peers, I would say, and there were people that were smarter than me, but they weren't making videos. You see what I'm getting at? So then I kept learning, and now when it comes to certain aspects of FPV, I know more than most people. and I make content about it. But in terms of 3D printing, I'm far from the smartest guy, and there are a bunch of other really smart people making content, so there's really not a lot of room to break through. Unless I became one of the smartest guys and made some of the best content. But that's probably not going to happen. Not for 3D printing. Penguins Can Fly, thank you for €5. I'm building a 3.5-inch quad, and I would like to use the tune of the Babyhawk HD or the Smart 3.5. If I use another flight controller, which parts of the CLI diff do I have to copy? Penguins Can Fly if the frame, the motors, the props, and the all-up weight are about the same, then I feel confident that the PID tune should be about the same. But I wouldn't copy the tune of the Babyhawk HD over to a Smart 3.5. So you need to have similar motor geometry, similar motors, props, and all-up weight, and then you could copy the PIDs. I would not copy the CLI diff, though. I would just manually copy the PIDs. You may end up not being able to copy it, because here's the thing. If you've got 1404 3900 kV motors, but they're like beta FPV motors instead of diatone motors. Well, maybe they have a lot more vibration, so you can't put the filters in the same place. And at that point, you can't copy the PIDs either. So it's difficult to copy PIDs between two builds that aren't completely identical. Nate Dogg wants to know, does the FPV goggles and smart controller work across all of DJI's product lines? No. The DJI FPV goggles work with the Caddx Vista, the DJI Air unit, and the V2 goggles also work with the DJI FPV drone. That is it. The smart controller works only with like Mavics and stuff. I don't know what. It doesn't directly work with the DJI FPV drone or the Air unit or the Vista. However, you can plug the smart controller into the USB port on the goggles, and then, yes, you can see the video, but you can't directly view the video. Thank you, John damn it. Griskowiak. John Griskowiak? How do you pronounce?
Brzeskowiak.
Wow.
Brzeskowiak. Brzeskowiak.
Grzez. Is there a J sound?
Brzeskowiak.
Grzezkowiak. Grzez.
Brzeskowiak.
That's a weird combination of sounds that my mouth doesn't usually make. Grzez. Grzezkowiak. Okay, I got it. John, thank you for your $20 super chat. Grzez. That's a weird combination of sounds. Grzezkowiak. I would not have gotten that. Grzezkowiak. Okay, I see it now. Nate Dog 13, thank you for a $5 super chat. Let's see here. Chibi Kaiju wants to know, is there a significant loss if using an SMA to RPSMA connector? No, I've heard, I mean, you have to make sure you tighten it down, because you can get yourself in trouble, but I've heard about a half a dB. That's not that much. If the connector is not like broken or worn out and you tighten it down, you should be fine. I wouldn't buy a new antenna. I would just use an adapter. Yeah, no, I know it's a Polish name. I just don't know how to pronounce it. Grzezkowiak. Shan Miller says, I've just started in FPV, and right now I'm only practicing on the sim because I'm waiting for new goggles from Orca or Fat Shark or Sky Zone. Any advice? Decide whether you really want to invest in analog at this time in history. Right now, especially if you're thinking about buying a high-end analog goggle like $500 and up, you should be seriously asking whether DJI is the direction you want to go. a lot of people are very, very happy with it despite its limitations. One of the limitations is that right now you can't buy the best cameras. They're not being made. Sucks. Also, SharkBite. I think there's a high potential that in the next 6 months to a year, SharkBite is going to take enough steps forward that it will become a super viable alternative to analog. Will it be on DJI's level in the public's eyes? I think that the image quality of DJI is always going to impress enough people, and the range and penetration is going to impress enough people that many will not see SharkBite as a viable alternative. But I think that definitely once SharkBite gets a high-power video transmitter and gets solid hardware that can take some hits, I think it's going to be a viable alternative to analog. Hopefully, I hope. So I think that if you've got $500 to invest in a set of FPV goggles today, I think I would hesitate to do that. I would hesitate to spend $500 on analog goggles today because analog, I mean, sure, if you want to, go for it. Analog is fine. But analog is in some ways on the way out. And yeah. So, but I don't know of any new. The thing is a new analog goggle going to come out? Like, Fat Shark is putting their efforts into SharkBite. There's no indication that Fat Shark is working on HDO3. Now, that doesn't mean they're not, but we have no leaks or rumors. Their focus seems to be on SharkBite. So are they just going to ride the HDO2 into the horizon? SkyZone, they're always coming out with like something new. But like the SkyZone Sky 04X, great field of view, great resolution, great receiver module. How are they going to make that better? Or are they also going to be looking at the digital future and going, well, what are we going to do? Especially with component costs going up as much as they are. So what used to be a $300 FPV goggle is now a $350 or a $370 FPV goggle. It's a really bad time for someone to come out with a high-end analog goggle. So we know that Orca is working on something. They're the only ones who we know that they have stopped major feature development on the Orca FPV-1. They're still supporting it in terms of bug fixes and aftermarket support, but they're not doing any new feature development. So there's a good chance that they're working on another goggle, but who knows when it'll come. So I would say buy DJI today if DJI is the right choice for you, or think about waiting until SharkBite becomes more viable before you invest $500 in an analog goggle, or get an analog goggle and, you know, it's your money. Who cares? Can you put SharkBite on DJI? No, over it. SharkBite requires an HDMI input. Kenneth Davis says, I just learned that if you do analog, use raceband 7 or 8 or DJI channel 3. Yeah, Kenneth Davis, raceband 7 and 8 are useful because they do not overlap with Wi-Fi, so you can't get Wi-Fi interference. As far as DJI channel 3, I'm not sure what your logic is there. Maybe in 50 megabit per second mode? Let's check that. I think maybe that's what you mean. So on DJI, 50 megabit per second mode, channel 3. Yeah, channel 3 does not overlap with Wi-Fi. And on DJI 25 megabit per second mode, channel 6 and 7 do not overlap with Wi-Fi. Yeah, so these channels will avoid Wi-Fi interference. And that's a good thing to do. GMI Visuals says SharkBite is already viable in my opinion. I mean, if you race, I think you could make that claim. Because you don't need the output power. 25 milliwatts is fine for racing. The only question then would be the durability of the boards. The quality of the camera is acceptable, especially once the new RunCam MIPI camera comes out. The quality of the camera is acceptable. The price is going to put some people off, $80, $90 for a video transmitter. But some people will pay that for HD. And I mean, I understand the price is never going to, you're never going to have like a $20 AKK video transmitter for SharkBite. Maybe, but not for a while. So setting aside the price, the output power and the video quality and the range are more than acceptable. Let's give you the benefit of the doubt in terms of durability. SharkBite is totally viable for racing. But for freestyle, the penetration and range just isn't there. Just isn't there. Have I flown the 500 milliwatt VTX? Jeremy Sarge asks. Yes, the 500 milliwatt is better, but it has durability issues because it has two stacked boards, and there's a stacked pin connection and an MMCX that goes between the two boards, and that compromises the durability. So they need a 30 millimeter. They need a 30 millimeter single board, like 800 milliwatt or 1 watt solution that has good durability, and then I think it's gonna be there. Pirate FPV asks, are you tempted to endorse SharkBite by putting your name on a new development? Maybe like an Express LRS SharkBite Duo. No, Pirate FPV, here's the thing. When I endorse a product, when I license my name to a product, the reason I do it is because I want a development that would not have happened otherwise. So I wanted Lumineer to make some changes to the QAVS frame to suit my personal preferences. And in order to accomplish that, I said, I'll endorse it if you make these changes. And they said, okay. I wanted a flight controller with a certain feature set and pad layout. And so I said to Race Day Quads, if you make it, I'll put my name on it. And they said, okay. I wanted a purple and yellow prop that I could put on my quadcopter. And so I said to GemFan, if you make these props, don't get me wrong, I chose those props because I like those props. But I said to GemFan, if you make a prop in the color combination that I want, I'll put my name on it. Now that one that's like the most shallow of the ones that I can think of. So you say, well, a SharkBite plus Express LRS single board combo. So number one, that's such a good idea. I bet it's going to happen without my help. Number two, would I run that to the exclusion of other things? Like I like Immersion RC Ghost. I like Crossfire. I like Tracer. I'm not ready to commit to Express LRS in a way that I probably would feel like I had to if I had a product with my name on it. And the other thing is that I think that's actually much harder than you think. Like I've seen the struggles that the Fat Shark has gone through to get SharkBite. Why do you think SharkBite doesn't have a 1 watt VTX? It's not for lack of trying. They're busting their ass to deal with heat dissipation and reliability and quality control problems. Me saying, hey guys, if you break this product, I'll put my name on it, is not going to make them work any harder. So it just feels like it would be me trying to be opportunistic and just, I don't want to just put my name on a product that was already going to get made just to get a cut of its sales. If a product is already going to get made, there's no reason for me to endorse it. Yeah. Brandon RC and the other guys in the chat, my understanding is that Race Day Quads and Rotor Riot intend to honor the $100 price on the pre-orders. If you placed a pre-order at $100, they intend to deliver. Now, obviously, you know, we don't know. Time will tell, but yeah. Yeah, Siati says, why do so many people think that having a VTX and receiver on the same board is a good idea? What if one breaks? There's practically no size difference. I mean, Siati, there's a lot of convenience in when doing a build in having those two and not having to, like, stick your receiver somewhere. Like, I really enjoyed having the Ghost Hybrid on my Switchback build. It simplified the mounting of all the hardware and just made the build easier and simpler. Just a question on how much durability you can get out of it and the price. Larry Carbaugh says, what is your choice that you use for your personal flight? If I had to pick one video system today to use until the end of time, it would be DJI. Like if I had to pick. DJI is fantastic for just general cruising. It's good for freestyle. For racing, the latency becomes a little bit of an issue. That might be a deal breaker. But some people race it and think it's fine. At the highest levels of performance, you might object to it. But overall, it's a great video link, great range, great resolution. The hardware is extremely durable. If I had to pick one, the main downside of DJI is the budget. Yeah. Jeremy Sarge says, I'm not convinced SharkBite is One Direction. It is. It totally is. Like, it just is. SharkBite has tricks they use to deal with missing and corrupted data, but it is not retransmission. Now, Ciati argues that the PCBs that you can solder a separate receiver and VTX to are a much better idea, because then, like the Crossfire, you can have a Crossfire receiver and a Nano Unify on a single board. Yeah, because then if and when you break one, you can desolder it and replace it. It's true. I've had bad luck with those types of mounting boards, though. Like the PCBs are really thin and break. I've had them break, so it's not perfect. It's just a question of how much work you want to put into the build versus the risk of damaging something later. Brian Waller, thanks for a $20 super chat. Carluke007, thank you for £5. Will you do a tiny whoop tuning video using Betaflight? I can't find this anywhere. Carluke, I would use EmuFlight on Tiny Whoop today. EmuFlight has some enhancements that make it fly better than Betaflight for a lot of people. EmuFlight also has PidTune presets for Tiny Whoops that will work really well. So that's where I would steer you for that. NateDog13, thanks for a $5 super chat. Thank you very much. GMI Visuals, thank you for £2. SharkBite's looking very good. Great interview with Carl and Chris Rosser. It's true. If you guys didn't check out the interview that Carl Zhao did with Chris Rosser, he's the founder? He's a high-up guy at HD0 and talked about SharkBite. It's a great interview. Yeah. We're caught up on Super Chats. Ciati FPV is in the chat as well. Ciati is going to be streaming at 3 p.m. after I get off the air. Ciati, go ahead and start posting that link as usual. If you guys are having a great time streaming and want to keep up the energy, definitely check his stream out after I wrap up at 3 p.m. Or what are you doing this week, Ciati? Once I get out of here, I am going to go fly the HX-115 long range for the first time. Working on my review of that. Will probably come out this week. So that's good. David Burgess says, if my flight controller has DShot 1200, should I use it? No. David Burgess, they're on Betaflight, I would use DShot 600. There's not really if you're using KISS feels there's an advantage to higher DShot. I'm not sure if that's true or not. If you're using KISS, maybe you just trust the KISS devs and use it. But Betaflight has gotten rid of DShot 1200 and argues that the only advantage of DShot 1200 is if you're doing 32K sampling, which Betaflight doesn't do anymore. Let's see here. Any updates on Flow State? UAPFPV Flow State got into another festival and got a Critics' Choice at one festival. So as soon as I know where an actual showing will be, then I'm going to let you know. We won one award, though. I was like, Critics' Choice Award. What does that mean? Does that good? Like, yeah, Critics' Choice Award. We got Critics' Choice at a festival, so that's nice. No more updates, though. GMI Visuals asked, would you still say 200 milliwatt on SharkBite is comparable to 200 milliwatt analog after the Wi-Fi issue corrected? Yeah. GMI Visuals, here's what, you're not going to like this answer, but I mean, I'm just going to tell you the truth. Here's the, and this is obviously, this is only one. This is one, one quad flying in one environment. So other people have released other results that show differently, but to me, I got to find the place. Yeah, am I going to be able to find it? Maybe I'm skipping 10. There it was. So, like, look at this run. Not here. Hang on. This path behind the barn to me is one of the main ways that I evaluate a sort of a gut check of the video transmitter penetration. And my gut check is that at 25 milliwatts, I can barely make it through here without losing video. Sometimes I lose video entirely. Whereas at 200 milliwatts, I can make it through without too much trouble. And I've flown through this several times, and you can see that there are moments of near complete video loss. So my feeling is that that's below average for a 200 milliwatt analog VTX. It's certainly not better. It might be no worse than a 200 milliwatt analog VTX, but it's certainly not. People saying I could go twice as far on SharkBite 200 milliwatts as on analog. I would not feel that I had that experience. Yeah, likewise over here. Now this one is a little unfair because I am facing towards the barn, so the patch antennas are facing that direction. Here we get kind of a big blip as I went that direction. So that's the other difference is SharkBite wants all 4 antennas. It uses all 4 antennas. It's not just doing like diversity switching between the Omni and the patch. At least that's my understanding. So with an Omni, with an analog, your Omni is always going to give you some penetration in all directions. But with SharkBite, you're basically always on a directional antenna, and you'll always get worse range flying behind yourself, even though you have Omni antennas on the SharkBite. That's my take. Anthony FPV Mini Quad says Luke did a test with 200 milliwatt analog. SharkBite had better penetration. I've seen some of these tests, and maybe they're true, or maybe there are some issues between them. I mean, you could just gather data, but my take is that SharkBite is about as good as analog, milliwatt for milliwatt. That's my take. If you're facing the patch antenna. If you're not facing the patch antenna, I think SharkBite has the potential to be a little worse than analog. So, because with analog, either you're on the patch or you're on the Omni, right? But with SharkBite, it needs all 4 antennas at once. So when you go behind yourself, now you're just on the Omni and you're losing the signal from the patch, and it sort of falls apart. Whereas with Omni, the patch, the Omni with analog, the Omni antenna has less coverage, but yeah, I'm not sure if that's making sense, but anyway, that's my take. I'll fly it some more and we'll see. But arguing whether SharkBite at 200 milliwatts is as good as analog at 200 milliwatts is kind of pointless, because nobody's flying at 200 milliwatts, are they? Yes, I know they are, but think about it. You're either a racer and you're using 25 milliwatts, or you're a casual flyer freestyler and 200 is not enough, right? So it's kind of a pointless argument. Give me 800, give me a watt, and then we'll see. Darka 002, thank you for $4.99 in the super chat. Is there a way to boost my video signal, some sort of booster, without having to push my video transmitter 1 watt? Yeah, use a higher gain antenna, but a higher gain antenna will have a narrower beam pattern. So, but that's what you'll do. All right, guys, we're gonna start wrapping this up. Ryan Quellet says HD0 has better reception than analog in line of sight tests. It is comparable or slightly worse to analog in non-line of sight. Maybe that's true. I haven't done any real line of, like, we got to get Wesley Vardy. Has Wesley Vardy done a SharkBite test? He's the range tested man these days, right? Get him a SharkBite. Has he done a shark bite test? Nope. Yeah, Wesley Vardy. Give me a shark bite range test. Yeah, in general, line of sight range and penetration tends to correlate. But especially when you've got a complex digital modulation with multiple receivers, it may not. So, anyway, we're going to wrap up. We're going to wrap up right now. Thank you so much for coming out. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern for the next live stream. And Siati, have a great stream. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go fly this quad. Happy flying, everybody.